It is my honor to welcome you today to the opening ceremony of the 6th Alpavirama International Youth Film Festival 2022.
In the pandemic, we realized the interconnected, interdependent nature of the world. So it was but obvious that in the post-pandemic world, we forget about these boundaries of Asia, South Asia, Global South, and open up this contest to across the world. Our focus still remains on young filmmakers, and we are underlying it by renaming the festival as Alpavirama International Youth Film Festival, so that whoever is looking into the festival, they know that it is a festival dedicated to young filmmakers.
Consuming films has surely changed, right? So earlier, watching a film was a grand family affair, no? And it wasn't just watching a film. There used to be a lunch and there used to be a visit to the park or the zoo and all those kind of things. Cut to 2020, theatre has come into our hands, into our living rooms. But what has not changed are stories. As a matter of fact, the number of stories which are still waiting to be told are far greater in number. Yeah? So I very joyfully, very delightfully want to welcome each one of you guys. Thank you so much.
The diversity of films which are going to be showcased, the program and the guest speakers reflect the spirit of the festival. Thanks to all of you for being here from all over. And I hope to cherish and enjoy this festival and sincerely strive to make Alpavirama the platform for many new ideas in years to come. Thank you all and look forward to it.
Gives us great pleasure to be here, and we are very grateful to the Film and Video Communication Department for having us here.
If at all freedom has to be talked about, it has to be negotiated collectively. It's not that we are free, because if you reflect back on the idea of a documentary filmmaker as someone who kind of brings change or kind of facilitates change, this is a different way of looking at it, where communities which probably are less powerful than other, because we as a filmmaker have wielded to great extent power over the act of representation. It kind of brought home the idea that when we are actually, as filmmakers, we go out into working with communities, we need to kind of keep these in mind, so to speak.
तो ये बात जो है ना सूफियों वाली और वो भटाई साहब वाली बात जो हिदा से होड़ा वो सारे आज दुनिया भूल के गई। जो मैं आपके सामने बातें कर रहा वो बातें जो है वो एक ही चीज़ से मुझे मिली कि भटाई के कलाम को अगर दूसरे के आवाज़ से मैंने सुना तो गहराई दिल की गहराइयों से सुना कि भटाई क्या कहता है, तो उसमें गम मिला खाली। तो गम तो इसी दुनिया गम का ख़जाना में भरी पड़ी हुई है, तो वो आदमी अपना गम का जो ढेर गम है, गम का जो ख़जाना है, वो अपने में जम कर लेना चाहिए। क्योंकि कोई मुसीबतें आती है ना, तो मुसीबत को बर्दाश्त कर लिया तो समझ लो कि इंसान बन गया।
More than ever before, we were already sort of trying to use the image in very many different ways in our films rather than seeing it as description or seeing it as evidence. But here I think really the kind of underlying philosophy helped us to explore the whole idea of the plenitude of image and sound. The multivocality of it, the affective charge that the image and sound can carry.
Well, on a larger horizon, prison exists only in the mind, because the five senses we are blessed with cannot be removed by prison. Like when I wake up, if I look up, I see the sky, I turn around, I exercise my right toe, walk, I talk with friends, I do even dirty things. Yet, the people from the other side sees me as somebody who is in prison. I wonder when I reflect it, that who is no, prison exists only in the mind.
I just wanted some reflections on like the modern age and how like social media has sort of created like a different relationship between documentary filmmakers and subjects, because oftentimes subjects are micro celebrities and they understand what gaze is, and like they have like a bigger understanding of how like they can control that.
For example, when we were documenting in 2017, we found, for instance, some women were reluctant to be represented because they felt that, if it goes online, the film goes online, and all the young men in the village can watch it on their cell phones, and they didn't like that idea. So more than celebrities, we face this problem that people don't want. They want to have control over their image, and rightly so, I would say. So we fully respect that choice that they make not to appear in the film.
If you have the gall, you could call it self-reflexive ethnography. Low budget.
Unfortunately, we do not have interesting stuff to share. No archival pictures of our grandparents, no home videos. Hence, we may not be able to hold on to this imagery for long.
Fade to black when the going is good. Art imitating life.
We can understand all these fancy metaphors you use, toothbrushes and, shoelaces and all of that. But will they be able to understand? So I think this sort of brings to the fore a very interesting question. I mean, who is watching the film and for whom? Are we watching the film for ourselves because something like, identity issues or, the need for communal amity, or how do we negotiate, difference, is something that's relevant for everybody. So then why are we watching the film on behalf of millions of others who will not understand? Thank you so much.
late?
No.
It is very important to know what is your bridge. Are you telling a story like a documentary? A lot of films are shot, they say that, we're telling a feature film, but it's shot like a documentary. What is it you want to say? Whether you want to tell, if you want to make a documentary film, then you tell the story which is socially relevant like a documentary. Your tone of voice can be a documentary film where it is a very different space. If you want to tell your film as a feature, then it has to look like a feature. Feature has certain kind of elements which is required. And if you're telling your story like a web series, again, it's a very different setup, because in a web series, you're telling half an hour to 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes each episode, and every episode has a cliffhanger. A feature film has lesser characters because you cannot handle so many characters from point A to point B. Structure in documentaries is very, very important. Feature film we all know because we have been working and studying on feature films, but web series is a very different ball game now. In web series, we have a whole lot of characters, and every episode will be definitely focusing on one character's journey. And what happens is that by the time you move on to your 6th or 7th episode, it's a lot of writing. There are writers' room for it. It's very important that all your characters are fleshed out, and the cliffhanger is very important. Therefore, whose point of view you're going to be telling each episode is very, very important. Make them cry, make them laugh. Right now I saw so many stories, and most of them were, I think maybe it's also storytellers are feeling, and usually the emotions and the fabric of a current situation usually makes you work and tell stories which you believe in as a storyteller. If you can make them cry, we can make them laugh also. So if you see, because we're still in the entertainment industry and we still want to tell stories which are entertaining, engaging. Homework and research is very important. So you have to make sure that you always keep your eyes and ears open, and you read also quite a bit. When I say research, it is just not about writing a story and writing your characters. But when you have your characters, why does your character behave in such a way?
The question is where to keep that responsibility away, and when to decide कि ये जाएगा, yeah, I can keep this thing. Do you think about people? Do you think about, okay, someone will get offended by this, I should not include this, or I should include this?
Point number one, like I said, that you need to follow rules, but you need to break rules also. Again, you tell stories for yourself, but you tell your stories for your audience too. And that says it all. So it's what you as a storyteller, what is your unique voice you want to say? That's why I said you do not have to follow what others do. You follow your own voice. You cannot make everyone happy. So if you feel that the joke which you're going to write or something which you're going to write is going to upset someone there, that is his or her problem, not yours. So you have to have that strong heart. It's because there will be someone who would have a problem with something you do always. In life and in stories. So.
ഒരു ടെറർ പ്ലോട്ട് പിടിക്കാം. എൻ്റെ ഹീറോ 23 വയസ്സ്, ആരും കണ്ടാലൊന്ന് പേടിക്കുന്ന മുഖം, ആ നാട് വാഴുന്ന കുണ്ട. അങ്ങനെ അവൻ ഷർട്ടിൻ്റെ ഉള്ളിൽ നിന്ന് മുട്ടിയെടുക്കുന്നു. വേണ്ട മുട്ടി വേണ്ട, തോക്കെടുക്കട്ടെ, തോക്ക്. അപ്പോ അതാ ഒരു മൂട്ടച്ചേട്ടൻ നടന്നു വരുന്നു. അവനെ പേടിപ്പിക്കാൻ ശ്രമിക്കുന്ന എന്റെ ഗുണ്ട.
പേടിക്കടാ, ഒന്ന് പേടിക്ക് കോപ്പ്.
ഒരു പ്രണയാതെ പിടിക്കാം. അവളുടെ അഴകാർന്ന കണ്ണുകൾ, അവളുടെ ആ നിഷ്കളങ്കമായ നടത്തം. അപ്പോഴതാ 21 വയസ്സുകാരൻ, എൻ്റെ ഹീറോ. He's a fucking romantic guy.
പോയി പൂ പോയടാ പൊട്ടാ.
ആരും കണ്ടാലും പേടിക്കും. ഷർട്ടിൽ മുട്ടിയെടുക്കും. എന്റെ ഹീറോ. അപ്പോ അതവര് ആരും കണ്ടാലും പേടിക്കും, മുട്ടിയെടുക്കും. അവനെ
You know, this is the room where we discovered Tarkovsky, Fellini, Agnes Varda, Stalker, that just blew everybody's minds away. I thought I would take you through some of the aspects of my work where I can very directly see the influence of NID, of Ahmedabad. And if you're coming, like all of us were, straight from school and from fairly, traditional conservative homes, there was the shock of the architecture and there was the shock of the thought that this place sort of provoked in you all the time. Having said that, I don't call myself a photographer. For me, photographs are raw material, and for me, it's all about what you do with the image, what you do with the raw material. You have to know what you do with that raw material. It's not enough to put that out on a stage or any platform. You see my newest work, the latest work, which is called Let's See, which is something I developed with the idea of contact sheets. And I think being able to design the kind of structures I've been able to make would not have been possible without this kind of training, where we had a little bit of textiles, little bit of product, ceramic, exhibition. Because had I gone to just a photography school or an art school, I think I would not be working the way I'm going to be showing you right now. And this is a book that I just published earlier this year. It's called Let's See. And this is my idea of a photo novel. I'm very interested in finding other forms for photography, but then other forms for the book as well. And why should a book of photos be like a Steidl book, very pristine, each image? And instead, I wanted to have very much this idea of a sequence from my very early work. So when Steidl saw my maquette, which is here in the NID library, so by this time, I had convinced Gerhard that we can have the possibility of making books that also become exhibitions. And that has gone on to be, I think, what I have done, what I have achieved, what I got this award for. So now at the Gropius Bau, at this retrospective, it is very, very satisfying for me, because at least a third of that retrospective has books on the wall, offset printed books on the wall, not just prints behind frame and glass. But you have to be ready to fail all the time. It's part of being an artist. You think you've tried something and maybe it just doesn't work. So I think finally it's about finding your voice and then trusting that voice.
For example, in your work, you have a photo novel, you have a film, you have a exhibition. And how do we make that decision as to how those images should be represented?
I don't think we make the decision. I think the images make the decision. And that's where I would say, think about the idea of listening to images. So what I do when I work is I have long tables, hundreds of images on the table. And so the images can be your guide. And then there are different levels of forms, no? So for me, often the book is the first form. And then there's an exhibition. But then there might be a video, there might be a projection, there might be flyers, there might be a suitcase. So it keeps expanding. But I feel the images are quite powerful and will tell you what they want to be.
Lesson number one was, the director and the editor were collaborators. We were collaborating, we were creating something, and I'm really going to talk about how I work with directors, because I don't edit my own films. I know I'm an editor that many people have wanted to work with and have worked with, but when it comes to my own films, I need another mind. You need a collaboration. When I start working with a director, the first thing I say is, sum up your film for me in one sentence or two max. But I need the core idea. I like to deviate from that. I like to go a little tangentially, but I want to come back to what the core is. I edit sequences, and that's the most challenging and exciting part of editing a documentary, because there's no beginning, middle, end. There's no script. I often edit as the film is being shot, and my feedback is important for the director to find his or her way through. I had put in a proposal. I heard of a Jain businesswoman who took Diksha. She renounced the world, she renounced the material world, and became a nun, a sadhvi. And I put in a proposal. I spoke to her mother and I said, do I have your permission to shoot with her, to film with her and tell the story? And she said, yeah, okay, come to Ahmedabad. When I met her guru, I was not given permission to shoot with her, because the sect was a very strict one, because my camera and my equipment uses batteries and consumes energy, and they don't believe in any of that. It was a bit of a crisis, because I'd got the funding for the film. I had imagined I would spend 6 months with the sadhvis and film with them over that time and put the film together. So that's what happens in a documentary. You have one plan, imagine it's going to be that way, it doesn't turn out that way. You have some material, you put it together, but you're constantly evaluating and seeing what else it needs. So I'll just play a little bit where you kind of get a sense of.
The Jain sects are headed by acharyas, men who are more high profile and powerful than the sadhvis. I'm sent to this higher court of appeal, where permission to shoot is once again denied. I'm told my equipment runs on batteries, which are charged by electricity. The consumption of all these energy particles implies a destruction of Jeev, or living beings. I think, but do not say, how far do you carry this? Would you refuse the help of life-saving machines if you're dying? This situation poses a challenge to my craft that I may not welcome, but must embrace. I have to find ways of telling without showing.
Situation demanded another layer that I wasn't being able to get in the way I was being allowed to film the sadhvis. This other layer, this struggle came in.
Bodybuilding, it includes each and every muscle. Obviously, the arm muscles, that is the biceps and the triceps, they are included definitely. And I think that is the most important thing, like whenever you have to show your strength or you have to show your body, the first it comes like you flexing up your arm. So that is, so that's why first I felt, how should I wear a sleeveless, like say a skirt or a frock, a midi, whatever, or a top. So it comes like, no, they'll be watching my muscles. So I just to be a bit conscious. So, but then I said, no, why not? I mean, rather it'll look toned up, gorgeous. I mean, looks wonderful.
3 साल हो गए हैं सुनीला को बॉडी बिल्डिंग करते, लेकिन आप ज़्यादा इनकरेज नहीं कर रही हैं उसको, क्यों?
इतना इजी नहीं है करना. इतने 6-8 साल करेंगे क्या, फिर बाद में करके शादी कब करेंगी, कैसा होगा उसका, ऐसा मन में ऐसे आता है कभी कभी. माँ को तो हमेशा उसकी फिक्र तो रहती है ना, उसको कैसा होगा, फिर बाद में वो लड़का मिल गया, उसको पसंद आएगा नहीं आएगा.
So when you're editing, you're not always staying with the situation the way it is. Okay, number one, you have to interpret it. In your editing, you interpret the situation. So Sunila, before this dining table conversation, there's been a lot of Sunila talking about what bodybuilding means to her, the struggle she's had, blah, blah, blah. She's had a say over many sequences. When we actually shot the kitchen conversation, she spoke a lot also. She contradicted what her brother was saying, what her mother was saying. She spoke a lot. But I just felt it was becoming too long, and she's also, in that setting, suddenly she was not very confident. She was also stammering and stuttering. And she didn't come across that well. So I eliminated her talking, because anyway she's had her say. And I just kept her quiet, smiling. It's somewhat ambiguous. You can make out she doesn't agree with what they're saying, which works quite well. I mean, everyone said, oh, she's so mature, she's keeping quiet. So people tend to interpret it like that. I've manipulated it. As an editor, you manipulate. You have to. So one of the things I do is when the rough cut is ready, I close my eyes and I hear the film. So I need to hear silence, I need to hear effects, I need to, or, they'll come later, but I need to sort of sense that there's this much of a pause. I need to hear a male voice, a female voice. I need to balance the narratives, and I need to hear that. You don't use shots that you love necessarily. They have to have place, they have to have meaning. If they don't fit in, they don't fit in. Thank you.
Eventually someone's going to ask you, why do you want me to watch this? And that answer has to be very clear. It can't be because only you want to tell the story. It has to be about something that's going to go a little deeper than that.
these elements in the same tracks. Because while mixing, it is always very easy to say, oh, all these elements need the same treatment. And it should be like very consistent in all the film to have all of them together while doing the same. You can decide which template to use, but try really to keep them always the same and have a consistency, because it's going to be easier. And also, if you, for example, if you try to implement a template and you know it, it is also easier to share it and to have other people to really like open it.
One of the dictionary meanings of design, as we all know, is the way something is planned and made or arranged. And if that be so, if an exhibition, a museum, a book, a billboard, or a sari, a product at large, can be designed, why not a film? Are we getting confused among the field, the skill, and the medium? Now, one of the key reasons such questions need to be raised is because film as a discipline has occupied arguably a fragile space within the domain of design. Historically, within the Indian design context, its raison d'etre and locus have often been contested, especially with respect to design pedagogy.
Form and content, content and form. It's not one over the other, but how does one balance the two? And I think maybe at that time it was not that clear, but as I look back at my mind and how I grew, I think what I finally came to realizing that it's the intent that matters. Those elements and those things carried us forward. The design education helped us in understanding film better. And when one says film as design, I look at this title more as design as a kind of a strategy, you know, like because what is design about? It's basically feeling the needs, planning and executing, and then coming back to where you started from, whether you've done it right. So it's basically a plan. So when you plan a design or any, suppose it's a graphic design, or you decide to print a sari or a bed sheet or whatever, you design a table, I think the same processes, you go through the same processes almost. But in film, what added to the whole, and since I was more into, my liking was more towards community and social change, so community participation became like it was like at the forefront. And so within that, social concern, relevance, the field realities, and the audience participation. And planning and strategizing, taking a stand and constantly adapting to new learnings, that was part of our process.
Even in fine arts, we always had these debates of, are we doing art for art's sake? Are we doing art to change society? Are we, what is the role or function of art? And I guess these are the questions for which we'll never have answers. We'll have answers, different answers in different eras. Cinema is what I learned in NID, in a design school. A design school gives you a window to a world. We have been saying design is multidisciplinary, and it is so true, because we have people who come from sociology, from anthropology, from the humanities, who make you question, in terms of inputs, even ways to question, not just do what somebody asked you to do, but also ask, why should I be doing this? Is this what is required? So I think cinema gave you the opportunity to move, towards the things you were looking at, to draw attention to something, and that you're taught in NID, which is environmental perception. Not that we really went through it, but we did our own fieldwork. So fieldwork is something that we felt was very important.
Various other things which film require or a television program require. So of course there is set design, there are costumes, there is opening sequences, graphic design, posters. So when we are talking about design and film, These are all the elements which goes within the film. And who else but Satyajit Ray, of course, was master of it, because he would do music. He would, in fact, he has designed 2 typefaces. I'm sure some of you know about it. So he would do his posters, and I've seen even some storyboards, you know, so he would draw beautifully. So what I'm coming back to is then, of course, we coined, my designation was production visualizer. I have no idea what that means. I don't think anybody else in the world besides me that had that, you know, title. Also, I wanted to talk about why that in NID, when initially a film or a photography, there was no specialization. You know, right now it is, but they were part of visual communications. Also, design always wanted to be, there is something for an end user, you know, who it is for. So whether you are making a chair, it is for a, you know, whether it's a lounge chair, whether it's an airport chair, whether it's a school for a student. Film also has that, and especially what they learn here in NID. I mean, that it used to be. I mean, that was the kind of mandate. You are in NID because you have to work in India, and you have to understand how things work in India, and that's the whole idea. I mean, it's a different story right now that every year now there are exchange students come and go, and you know all that thing is happening. But at my time, it was completely different. I would attribute all this thing, what my work, which I did, to the kind of exposure, you know, which NID gave me. And that's because it's, whether it's textile, whether it's furniture, whether it's product design, whether it's, you know, all these disciplines.
After graduating, I have directed a documentary called Jadui Jungle. I directed, edited, and did sound design for it. And I've been working in the development sector as a communication strategist or simply wearing many hats. A lot of my work and my approach to what I learned in my time at NID in a design college, be it the script or be it the planning of the shoot or the research that goes behind the documentaries, I like to know everything, every little detail, because that's where spontaneity comes from. I feel there is a lot of space at the grassroots to amplify those voices and those narratives, and at the same time, what we learn as professionals, to package it in ways that is more meaningful to them.
Thank you very much for attending Alpavirama 2022. I hope you all had a great time here. We all worked really hard to make sure that you all enjoy this festival. If there is anything that you feel can be further improved upon, please feel free to share your feedback with me or my team. We'll try to make the next edition of Alpavirama even better, bigger, and a great experience for young filmmakers. Till then, goodbye. Thank you very much.